Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton Big C Sports coming to you September the 6th, 2016, worldwide on the iHeartRadio network. And what a beautiful day. I want to thank all of our great listeners down in Latin America. So bienvenidos to you. Also you good listeners out in London, England, as well as Berlin, Germany, and the great country of Canada. And of course, we cannot leave out the great United States of America. But Big C, I know it's football season. You good old boys are happy down south, especially after you cheated USC out of a football game, Big C. But how's it going for you good old boys down south, Big C?
If you're not cheating, you're not trying. What you do is you go out and you hire as a consultant the former coach from last season.
Yes.
You bring him in, you got him in during training camp, during fall camp. You got the playbook.
You're talking about Nick Saban, right?
The offensive defense, because you recruited all those players. Not only that, your defensive coordinator worked under you for the past couple of years.
Well, that's...
So he didn't have time to implement a new offense, even though they had T. Martin, the former national championship winning quarterback at the University of Tennessee, and the SEC player calling the plays. They still had Steve Sarkisian's playbook. So he knew everything about T. Martin, Quay Helton, what they were going to do. So, you know, they let it. The game lasted a little longer than what I thought it would. I said it'd be over at the kickoff.
Oh, wow.
He at least took it through the first quarter.
Well, I feel so bad for Lynn Swann because he has to justify that 7-figure contract that he signed as the athletic director, and he only came back because he was guaranteed a win. But, you know, the plot just got a little thicker, Big C. Now, I know people listen to us around the world, but you just said that T. Martin, a former University of Tennessee quarterback in the Southeastern Conference, he's the offensive coordinator for the University of Southern California Trojans, right? Okay. Now they took Steve Sarkisian, who was fired by USC, and they were talking to him before the game happened over the weekend, and Lane Kiffin, who was at USC.
He's been in Alabama the past couple of weeks. Don't believe what you heard in the media.
Okay.
He's been working in Alabama the whole month of August, helping Nick Saban offensively and defensively understand what USC had entailed. He brought the former playbook with him, Charlton. It's not like he had scrapped that when he was fired.
That is so funny.
He had the players who could do what, who could not.
Yeah.
And you got to realize, USC, I believe, only started 3 freshmen in the game.
Yeah.
And so if they only start 3 freshmen, 18 of those other starters were Steve Sarkisian recruits.
And they had 15 returning starters and 1 special team returning starter. All Steve Sarkisian knew all about it. But Big C, I was talking to a sports agent today, Jermaine Hill, out of the Bay Area, and I was saying that Big C had some knowledge that we're going to hear about in the Associated Press today. I'm looking at the Associated Press, and it says Alabama, former USC head coach Steve Sarkisian is joining #1 Alabama staff as an analyst in the Crimson Tide. Coach Nick Saban confirmed the hiring of yet another USC coach joining the offensive coordinator Lane Kiffin. It's so ironic that you brought that up. It's been going on for a couple of weeks, but the Associated Press got wind of it today, which is September the 6th. And also, speaking of getting wind of it, this segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go down and test drive it, ask for the one that Big C turned in because it probably doesn't have a lot of mileage on it. I know Big C likes to go straight lines. He hates going off-road, Big C, or is that the wrong story, Big C?
Well, Charlie, you don't want to ride a vehicle too long. It's like riding a horse too long. You got to give it a rest. So you give it to somebody who's going to give it a little more care. We buy them to use it. Okay? You don't buy them to sit there and look pretty in the driveway. When you take them out, they know they're going to be rolled hard. Okay? That's what we do down here.
I understand that. See, guys like Big C, they get cars given to them by dealerships. They're not trade-ins. They're just exchanges. But also, speaking of exchanges, Big C, I'm so happy for football being back, college football. And we talked about it a little bit yesterday at Labor Day weekend. We had a show and just kind of letting people know it's okay to sit back and eat some barbecue and enjoy the day. But I know we were talking about how many great athletes are out there, and we get infatuated with football, and it's great. But I just want to go back over a few games that we talked about over the weekend. The Texas and Notre Dame game. Charlie Strong, he's off the hot seat for one more week, Big C. At least one more week, because the good old boys are riding him pretty hard down in Texas. But he got a big win over Notre Dame, Big C. Your thoughts on how Charlie Strong, is he securing his job, or does he still have to win 10 games, Big C?
Well, I think he can win 10 games this year, Charlie. But Charlie Strong has always been good with young quarterbacks. Now, Teddy Bridgewater, we know of Minnesota Vikings, who was just injured, was Charlie Strong's quarterback down at the University of Louisville.
Yeah.
Charlie Strong now has his own quarterback. He started a true freshman against the University of Notre Dame and got productivity. He also brought in a second-year quarterback, Swoops, who he played for him last year. It wasn't his recruit, but he was there on the Texas campus. And so using these two quarterbacks together and this up-tempo offense that Texas employs, before it was ground and pound.
Yeah.
Now they're up-tempo. They're trying to get off and play a la the University of Oregon.
Yeah.
Every 8 to 12 seconds. That's what they're trying to accomplish. And so they've done a great conditioning job during the offseason to be able to have those huge hulking linemen play at that tempo down at the University of Texas. But you got to be proud for Charlie Strong and U of T, one of the winningest programs in the history of college football. You want to see them up top. See, football is better when you have traditional programs, Charlton, that are winning. Houston, I mean, not Houston, but Texas has been the team in the South for decades. And when Texas is down, it seems like college football is down a little bit also, Charlton.
Well, Big C, Texas is one of the hot recruiting beds in college football. You have Texas, you have states like Florida, you have California, Georgia, Ohio, all the great states. But I'm even going to swing down south. When you look at Texas, the great state of Texas had USC, Alabama in the Kickoff Classic. That was a remarkable build-up. Not the greatest game, but a great build-up. And then Houston, I don't think they upset Oklahoma. I think they straight out beat Oklahoma. That game was down in Houston. And then also you had Texas and Notre Dame playing a great game. But another great game that went to overtime was Texas A&M and UCLA. Ironically, you have more African-American head coaches in the SEC do you have in the Pac-12, which is considered a progressive conference. We only have David Shaw here in the Pac-12 conference, Big C. But the good old boys down south, they're seen as segregationist states. So why do they have more black head coaches in the South than you have out in the West Coast, where it's more progressive, Big C?
Well, Charlton, I think they have a better understanding what it takes to get the players and keep the players at home. And when you look at these schools, Charlton, they have a lot of homegrown players. But you have to have people that can interact with the players. You got to remember, years ago, the SEC hired the first black coach at Mississippi State, Sylvester Crowe, which was an Alabama alumnus. And so they've made waves. They also opened up the door down south for black players when Bear Bryant was the head coach after USC had beat up on them back in the 70s and stuff. But,
and the problem with USC, Big C, they were still watching that film. That's the team they thought they were playing on Saturday.
Well, sometimes you got to let things go. It's like me. If I go pull up my high school clip and say, back then I had a head full of hair. But it's gone now, so I had to let it go. That was Lynn's. You sit back and you think about the progression of the African American coaches down in the South, how they've expanded and taken over more major programs. We've had them at the University of Miami. We've had them all throughout the South, Charlton. So, that's a big plus. And, a lot of them get jobs as coordinators. We talk about T. Martin, former quarterback at Tennessee, as the offensive coordinator there at USC. So he's auditioning for a future head coaching job when you think about it, Charlton. But, just the talent level that you get down in these southern states, and we talked about the great games that were played in the state of Texas over the weekend. But when you look at college football as a whole, Charlton, 7 of the top 25 teams in the country lost. 7 of the top 25. You think about Alabama, they're the flagship program in the SEC, and everybody
in the country.
Who's going to knock them off in the conference? Well, they got to keep them getting knocked off when they're playing non-conference games. Not worried about Alabama yet. That's true. That's true. That's their biggest problem. But, the SEC didn't have a great weekend overall. 3 of their teams lost that were ranked in the top 25. So that was tough. Mississippi State lost his first game. Under Dan Mullen, opening game of the season. This is the first time they lost it in the head coach down there. But when you upgrade your competition, Charlton, at the beginning of the season, you may not always be in true form. But you have other programs that just roll tide.
That's what I understand that. I think USC is trading that white horse that was kind of, the problem. They had that white horse, but somebody fed him some moonshine or something because he didn't run at all, Big C.
They might have traded that for Army's mule by now, Charlie.
They might have something else to do with that horse now. Put him out the pasture. But also, Big C, I think that Houston game, and you kind of predicted it too. I know Oklahoma was ranked in the top 4, and some posters even had them ranked number 2 in the country. But Houston, with the quarterback, their dual threat, Greg Ward, he accounted for 38 touchdown passes last year. Not only were they just better offensively, their defense was hungry. They returned a kickback at the edge of the goal line for a touchdown, 109 yards. Just impressive the way they played. I don't know why they're not part of the Big 12 Conference Big C. They would be a great representative for the state of Texas and that Conference Big C. Your thoughts on that?
Well, what happens, Charlton, if you make them part of the Big 12? Now that recruiting bed in that state has been reduced. That's what happens. You get teams like Oklahoma State recruiting out of that conference, Oklahoma, the University of Texas, Texas A&M, because of the conference that they're in the SEC, and they're both others are in the Big 12. Now, Houston's in Conference USA.
Yeah.
Not one of the Heritage Conference, one of those small scattered conferences that has about 16 teams in it, Charlton.
Yeah.
Now, you bring Houston into the fold with their winning ways. Now, they can compete in that conference right away. And I think one of the backlashes, if you go back and look at TCU, Charlton, when TCU came into that conference, they came in from the WAC.
Yeah.
But TCU has won the conference twice.
Yeah.
They've been make that 3 times. They've been to the Rose Bowl. They've played nationally.
Yeah.
And so they went in and beat up on the big boys that were the traditional schools, and they were this young upstart. And they've had a great program under Gary Barnett down there.
And when you bring that up, Big C, there was a time when you're right. They played out on the West Coast. They're playing Fresno State, San Diego State, San Jose State. They were going to Pac-12 and Pac-10 territory, and they went back and played in the Southwest Conference and actually won the conference a couple times. So maybe that's why there's a pushback on having some of the smaller tier schools come into the bigger limelight. Another player I want to ask you about, there was a shootout game Ole Miss played last night against Florida State, a remarkable comeback by Florida State. Their running back, Dalvin Cook, he looks like a Heisman Trophy potential, but their offense, they struggled for a little bit against Ole Miss, Big C, but when they got it going, they came back. I think they were down by 22 points. Your thoughts on Florida State, Big C?
Well, another true freshman quarterback, Charlton, and we've talked about these young guns coming into college football and being able to play right off the bat. Jameis Winston, who won the Heisman Trophy as a true freshman down at Florida State. You look at Marcus Mariota. He started at Oregon for 3 years, started from his freshman year on. And we looked at Rosen from UCLA. Last year, passing for some 3,600 yards as a true freshman down there. But Florida State has a marvel in Francisco, the quarterback. I mean, he was 32 of 45, 451 yards, 2 touchdowns in the air, plus on the ground, Charlton.
Yeah.
It's just like with Texas, you got these young quarterbacks that walk in. Kelly got Mississippi off to a wonderful start. They were up 3 touchdowns in the first quarter. But once Francisco got over those opening game jitters, he was a poised quarterback, Charlton, leading the Seminoles, which is a great athletically talented team. Jimbo has done a marvelous job since taking over for the great Bobby Bowden down there. He's won a national championship. He's been in the chase. And now he has a young quarterback that can lead him for some time.
Oh, yeah.
And when we talk about the SEC being a dominant conference, the ACC has held its own against the SEC here in the opening week of the season.
And see, Big C, I was talking to you about that also, and as we get into that, this segment is sponsored by the California Lottery. What could a buck do for you? I'm telling you, Big C, I could really use some good luck, so I went out and bought that. I think it's called Mega Million. It's only $101 million, so Joey Bosa wouldn't be happy, but I'll take it. Also, the Powerball is $180 million, and that's on Wednesday night, and that's won by Charlton and Big C Sports. Now, I'm going to do what Creflo Dollar does. I'm going to pray on it. I'm going to ask God for the money, because we know that prayer works, Big C. If that Creflo Dollar is $65 million airplane, maybe we can get Charlton and Big C Sports at $300 million. There's not too much to ask God for prayer, Big C. But speaking of asking for prayer, and I'm serious about the lottery, Big C, let's pray for it. Okay, you got me on that, Big C?
I may go buy a round trip ticket and come out there and spend a buck on one of those.
Just borrow Nick Saban's plane. You know you're in good with him. But that comeback by Florida State, I think you mentioned that was the largest comeback in the history for Florida State. And they did it against Mississippi, Ole Miss, that was ranked number 11 in the country. So not one of those easy games that they would start off back in the day. Everybody's playing big right now. But as someone I was really impressed with too, even in loss, UCLA's Josh Rosen. I think he had receivers let him down in that game against A&M. I want to credit A&M's defense for playing good defense. But Rosen, he was a high school All-American out of St. John Bosco High School in Bellflower, California, a national power in high school football. But to start as a freshman at UCLA and then to have the success that they had with him, Big C, I still think they have a chance to win the Pac-12. But I want to say, and I want your opinion on this, I think watching this kid play, he's more impressive than Carson Wentz and Jeff Goff. In fact, last year in the Pac-12, he was a better quarterback than Jeff Goff. UCLA didn't always play from behind to pad his numbers. So your thoughts on this kid and what he looks like NFL-wise, Big C?
Well, Jim Moore has a better understanding than the NFL than a lot of people in college football because he's been there as a head coach, as an assistant coach. And he grew up with his dad as a coach also, so he's been in that coaching realm his entire adult life. But when you look at Rosen, and I saw bits and pieces of the game, I saw 2 pure touchdowns dropped by his receivers in that game, Johnson. This young man can put the ball on the money. He can spin the football. And so, if he stays around UCLA at least for one more year, he'll be a top 5 pick in the NFL because he'll be ready. He understands the game at that speed. Physically, he's developed more this year than what he had last year, so he understands what the weight room structure is for the body. UCLA has a very dominant, prominent program, but it was a game that, could have went either way for either team. But as we spoke about, your receivers have to be dependable when they're out there. Not about the celebration they're going to have when they get to the end zone. Catch the ball first. Catch
the ball first. Don't try to run with it first. That's very true. And also, Big C, just again, and I want to bring this up because you talked about it before the season started, and we were talking about the lack of African-American college football programs that were shown by ESPN, where even Kirk Herbstreit has a high school kickoff classic of all things, and they wouldn't really show black college football teams other than Southern and Grambling, and that would be at the end of the year. But I want to congratulate ESPN for airing Alcorn State and Bethune-Cookman on ESPN, as well as Texas Southern and Prairie View. They were on before the Texas in the Notre Dame game. So congratulations to ESPN for finally having a consciousness, because when you put money into these black college football programs, the endorsements will help fund some of the programs the same way it does for Ohio State, for Georgia, Alabama, and USC. So good job by ESPN showing some of the black colleges too. I think they have over 20 games slated for ESPN this year. Last year, Big C, you could get all their games in one hand, Big C. But I think you've been bringing that up, Big C, and I think the people at ESPN are listening to you because money talks, and when you don't have the sponsors coming to support your program, how do you keep up with the big boys, Big C?
Well, you talk about the people at ESPN listening to me, Jonathan. ESPN, all the people listen to us. Okay? Because what we do on a program, we will find it within 48 hours on ESPN. There's so many tidbits about what we do that are plagiarized, and everybody plagiarizes in this business. But what we're doing, we're time-stamped. So anybody who thinks that ESPN is the originator of what they're talking about, go back into iHeartRadio's catalog. Pull up a Charlton and Big C show within 48 hours of what you heard on ESPN. You will see it's already been said. And we don't have that huge technical crew and research staff. We have our minds and knowledge about the game. I've been in it over 40 years, Charlton, doing what I do, playing, coaching, broadcasting, understanding the game. I have dirt under my fingernails, dirt on my cleats.
And you also have dirt in that Escalade you traded in.
Parts of my body. So I understand the game.
And Big C, you also have some dirt in that Escalade you traded into. Okay, so dirt's not always a good thing, Big C. But I do want to say,
we didn't have AstroTurf all the time.
I understand.
That was a new thing when I started the game.
Okay, but again, congratulations to ESPN. And thinking of ESPN, they've had a large exodus, Big C. A lot of guys went over to Fox Sports. Now, Troy Aikman, he was calling out ESPN, his employer, for Skip Bayless. He doesn't like Skip Bayless.
Calling out Fox. Calling
out Fox. You're right. Skip Bayless and Fox, and not liking their hire. But there's some people who didn't think that Troy Aikman should have gotten the job, Big C, when he took over and John Madden started to step aside. So who is he to call out his own employer about who he should or should not hire? It's a funny how some guys think they're in such good position that they can tell their employer who not to hire, Big C. Has that gone to Troy Aikman's head, what they call white privilege, that Tim Wise talked about, Big C? Your thoughts on that?
Well, Charlton, sometimes you forget about where you came from. Skip Bayless was a beat writer in Dallas for years, even before Troy.
When Troy was in Pampers. When he was in Pampers.
When the Express days, when Ron Meyer was the head coach at SMU, and they had Eric Dickerson and Greg James, and a great program. So he's understood the Dallas area program for a long time. When Roger Staubach, Danny White were quarterbacks with the Cowboys. Steve Ballard, long before Troy Aikman came along. Troy Aikman was 1-15. As a rookie starter with the Cowboys. They had a terrible team. But Skip Bayless, with everybody know they had a terrible team. He didn't hide anything in his writing. Troy Aikman probably didn't like that kind. they went from the outhouse to the penthouse
with Jimmy Johnson.
Super Bowl championship under Jimmy Johnson. But also on the latter side of Troy Aikman's career, he wasn't the guy when they were winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
His career sort of went downhill in a hurry.
Yeah.
Concussions and things accelerated it. But Skip Bayless was telling the truth during that time.
And that's true.
And so players don't always like that when reporters tell the truth.
Yeah.
And they get a chance to backlash at them.
Yeah.
And this was unprofessional by Troy doing
that. He shouldn't have done that.
This is the job of Fox to hire who they hire.
Yeah.
And Troy's job is an analyst, okay?
Yeah.
On football games, not on hiring.
Well, Big C, it's ironic we talk about the black-white skin color thing, how a lot of times if President Obama spoke the way Donald Trump would, they would castrate him. If Colin Kaepernick decided to take a stand and just not salute because he doesn't believe in something, people jumped all over him. But Troy Aikman, and I love him as a quarterback when he played at UCLA, he was actually started at Oklahoma under Barry Switzer. They played Oklahoma against, I think, a game against Miami where he broke his knee, or broke his leg, and then I think it was Switzer who called Coach Donahue, Terry Donahue at UCLA, and said, I have a guy who can throw the ball. And so he's been given that privileged treatment for most of his college career. But I think this is something for black and white men to talk about, and people don't have to agree with it. But sometimes, as a Caucasian man, you think you have it so good that you can call out your employer, and your employer's going to sit there and say, okay, well, how can we make you happy? Imagine if that were some of the African-American analysts telling their network that they made the wrong choice, and they call them out, they put them on blast. That should have been a private conversation, Big C.
Chris Carter basically did that at the Rookie Supporter.
And he's gone.
ESPN got rid of him.
Yeah.
You look at Keyshawn Johnson. Yeah. He got into it with his neighbor, Justin Bieber.
Yeah.
Justin Bieber that plays a lot of music on Disney Channel.
Yeah.
On ABC Radio.
Yeah.
So Keyshawn Johnson was gone. It's about who you get in.
Ray Lewis has gone from ESPN. Ray Lewis has gone from ESPN also.
You look at the number of African Americans. Harold Reynolds, baseball analyst from ESPN, gone. You look at the number of African American analysts who've been easily put out of the door over things that they've said. Even Shannon Sharp, Sterling Sharp, both of those brothers have been exited from broadcasts on network television. So it's about what you say, and if someone is rubbed the wrong way and you're an African American saying it, you got to go.
Well, I contrast that with the thing with Colin Kaepernick right now. He had the second chance to come out and explain himself better than what the media tried to cut and mix his words together. And now a lot of people are saying you do have a right to express your opinion. This is land of the free, home of the brave. But here's Troy Aikman, and I like him as a player, as a broadcaster. He has Joe Buck carries him a lot. But here's a guy that admonishes his own network, and he's still going to be working on Sunday, Big C.
Well, like you said, there's a level of privilege that certain people possess. And he's in that club, that he can use that privilege club to do and say what he wants to say. And when you talk about President Obama today, the president of China was very disrespectful and embarrassing to the president, making a derogatory statement about the man's mother. You think if President Obama went and said that about some other world's leader's mother, think the outcry and the backlash coming against our president. But our national media really doesn't want to say anything about that. But, here it is. They need to defend the commander-in-chief of our country. When he's embarrassed like that, he can't go out and play name games with another foreign leader who's supposed to be our ally. But this is the disrespect that President Obama has gotten at home. He's getting it abroad. He's done a wonderful job for America and the world. But he will never get the respect that he deserves because he's a black president. And I think a lot of people don't want to see that, but it's true. The Good Old Boy Network still has never accepted that. Donald Trump jumps on the back of it. Who is Donald Trump? The Republicans who back Donald Trump are more stupid than Donald Trump.
Because he's going to fire them if he gets a job, Big C.
I'm one man that votes will matter. But Donald Trump is the biggest embarrassment that America has ever seen. He is the biggest embarrassment, and the media parades him around. And I mean, he's the equivalent of a porch monkey.
Well, think about the contrast of him saying, "Beat the heck out of people who pay your medical bills or your legal bills," and what he said about Hillary Clinton, which was just despicable.
Second Amendment, Second Amendment people taking care of
that subliminal message that he was trying to tell people to go out and do. But he also owned the New Jersey Generals. He tried to buy the Buffalo Bills, and they blocked him from that. And thank goodness, and hopefully they'll block him from being the next president too. Yeah,
he's had 2 wives that have been illegal aliens when they came to America.
Wow.
2 wives. Both of his wives were illegal aliens coming to America, but yet he's talking about deporting illegal aliens.
Yeah.
Which one of his wives or ex-wives?
Well, that's funny because that's also true. And this segment is sponsored by United Labor Guaranteed $100,000 life insurance with no medical questions. You can tweet out the Charlton Big C Sports. We're also endorsed by the American Cancer Society and the American Heart Association. I'm also looking to hire over 1,000 licensed insurance brokers. Tweet out the Charlton and Big C Sports. You can keep looking for work on, I think, Craigslist or some of these other sites, but just click Charlton and Big C Sports on iHeartRadio Network and send me your information, and I'll make sure that you get an interview for that. And also, Big C, something else I want to bring up too, in the world of baseball, as we touch on baseball just a little bit, we have Toronto playing at the Yankees tonight, and we have Baltimore at Tampa Bay. Houston is going to be on the road at Cleveland with Detroit. They're on the road at the White Sox. Kansas City last year won the World Series, and they are against Minnesota. The Angels are on the road at Oakland up here in the Bay Area, and Boston's at San Diego, and Texas is at Seattle. So great games going on in baseball. But I also want to touch base on the female side of sports too, because the Williams sisters, they have been so remarkable. And Serena Williams, you look at her, over 2,000 victories and 308 wins in match, and she's just uncomparable. You can't really say anyone has done what she's done. And the great thing about the Williams sisters, they did not start in the country club, Big C. They started with their father pretty much in the heart of South Central Los Angeles, and all the disadvantages they had versus some of the country club girls. Your thought on the Williams sisters?
Well, Charlton, to have a better backdrop of the Williams sisters' life in the upcoming. Anyone that want to see the movie Straight Outta Compton.
Amazing.
Okay, the Williams sister grew up right down the street from where all this was occurring. There was also another movie done called Boys in the Hood, who had Ice Cube in that movie also.
Oh, yeah.
Lawrence Fishburne.
Back in the day.
Cuba Gooding Jr., Nia Long. Same type of backdrop. Compton.
Yeah.
You know,
I think Morris Chestnut was also in that movie. Morris Chestnut, I believe, was in that movie as well.
Yeah, Morris Chestnut was in that movie also. He was recruited to USC to play running back.
Yeah. They could have used him in the Alabama game too, Big C, now that I think about that movie.
He was somebody that can run. But, you know, when you think about what the hardship that they had to endure, they didn't get a chance to go to the country club. They didn't get to go to play at the college campuses. They didn't go to all the major events early on in their young careers. But Richard Williams knew the game of tennis. He taught his daughters the fundamentals. And he was enduring about that, Charlton. And when you look at where they've risen to, and you spoke about Serena. Serena passed Roger Federer last night for the all-time, cup championship. And, you know, match championships with 308. She eclipsed the great Roger Federer. Now you think about the great female tennis players of the past when we talk about a Steffi Graf, Chris Evert, Martina Navratilova. I mean, she has supplanted every great female tennis player in history, Charlton. And Serena Williams, whether she goes down as the greatest female tennis player ever, which she is, she has just done a marvelous job representing women, African American women, and American women around the world, Charlton, because they've played the world. They've showed the ultimate respect. They have not done what this Greg Lochte did down in Rio. That's true. They didn't go down and lie on a foreign country trying to get more acclaim for themselves, as you know, Lochte did down in Rio at the Olympics. They've represented themselves and America well. When you want to talk about true representatives who stand for what they stand for, the Williams sisters done a marvelous job, and I got to give kudos to their dad, Richard Williams, for creating these great young women along with their mother.
And you know they weren't always welcome when they showed up. The skin color and the line of people not talking about race, how it matters or doesn't matter. You know they were not always welcome, so he did a great job getting them through that. Big C, our final segment, I'm going to cover a little bit of NFL football, just some ideas and your thoughts on who's going to have to play well to win. And this final segment is sponsored by One Life America Life Insurance. I'm a leader broker with United One Life America Life Insurance. We're also the leaders in the country when it comes to final expense, and I'm also looking to employ over 1,000 licensed insurance brokers. Tweet out the Charlton and Big C Sports every Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the iHeartRadio Network. We'll also have some shows airing at the 6 o'clock p.m. hour on iHeartRadio Network, and also Beneath His Wings Foundation and CYNN Entertainment with Cynthia Evans. She's the best when it comes to promotions in Northern California. Now, Big C, we'll cover just a few of the NFL games before we wrap today. Carolina, I know they're a favorite over Denver. They're at Denver. I think they're a favorite because you don't have the same team in Denver you had last year. Your thoughts on the game coming up on Thursday night with Carolina at Denver, and what's it going to take for Carolina to prevail in that game?
Well, Carolina, I think Charlton has Denver's number. They had some help from some officials and some bad calls last year.
Yeah, you think?
But, Denver's not the same team that they were at that point. You had a quarterback who couldn't push the ball, but he understood the game.
Yeah.
And now you got Simeon, this young quarterback. I think that first game jitters, they say they like him in the preseason.
Yeah.
But I think this is a way for Cam to start the season all over again.
Yeah.
At the pace that he started last year. So I like the tremendous defense that they have to win this game. Von Miller can't beat everybody every week.
Not every week, that's for sure. Second game on Sunday, Minnesota, they're a 2.5-point favorite over Tennessee. That game's on the road without Teddy Bridgewater. Your thoughts on that game?
Well, the big question mark is who would Minnesota play at quarterback? They just traded for Sam Bradford.
Yeah.
They gave up too much for him, a first and a fourth round draft pick next year. And if Minnesota was to make it higher in the playoffs, that draft pick goes higher.
Yeah.
But, you look across the table. Can Minnesota control the ball on the ground with Adrian Peterson? The rhythm of the quarterback makes a big difference. If there's no threat down the field, they can slow down Adrian Peterson. So the Vikings may not be favored like they should. They may not cover that spread.
Yeah, and Tennessee has two great running backs in the backfield and a great quarterback that can move the ball as well.
And you got Henry and Murray. You got this tandem of backs that are both about 6'3", 6'4", 240 pounds. Mariota's very mobile in the backfield, and Tennessee has a good core of young receivers. So, I like what Tennessee can do by running the ball. We know Minnesota's always had a stalwart on the defensive line.
Yeah.
But Tennessee, I kind of give them a little bit of an advantage. I like what they did in their last preseason game against the Raiders.
Yeah.
And so I expect them to do much more of that this week against the Vikings.
Well, I like that. I have Tramika Doss. She's an attorney that follows Charlton and Big C Sports. She's also a part of the NFL alumni. Used to do some work with Tennessee as well. Philadelphia and Cleveland. That game is in Philadelphia. They're a 4-point favorite over Cleveland. Your thoughts on that game, Big C?
Well, Charlton, we talked about Carson Wentz a lot here in the preseason. Number 2 overall draft pick out of North Dakota State.
Yeah.
Got hurt in his first preseason game in the NFL.
Yeah.
He did not recognize the speed of the game. A lot of people don't realize, Charlton, he missed 6 games in his senior year in college.
Yeah.
Playing against the smaller subdivision players. And now he's playing against the big boys. It's going to be full speed come Sunday. I hope the best for the young man, Charlton.
Yeah.
Cleveland wasn't the best team in the NFL last year, but they were an NFL team.
That's very true.
NFL players, Charlton, all the way across the roster.
That's true.
So this is going to be a game-changing scenario for Carson Wentz. He's going to have to really pick up the tempo of the game. Now, if I'm the defensive coordinator for the Cleveland Browns, all I do is pull out the film from the 1986 Chicago Bears. And I blitz the hell out of the guy all game long. You're going to beat me. You're going to beat me throwing deep. You're not going to beat me with anything around the line of scrimmage.
And I think
you're going to be up in your chin all day.
And I think Mike Singletary and Richard Dent, those guys can still play. We have New Orleans. They're a pick'em game at home in New Orleans against the Raiders. If there's any chance for the Raiders to start getting rid of that almost made it, almost did it mentality. It's a 10 o'clock game for the West Coast team, not very good for them, but they have to beat New Orleans. Your thoughts on that game in New Orleans, Big C?
But neither team played great defense during the preseason, Charlton, and that's the Achilles heel, and especially last season for New Orleans. We know Drew Brees is going to come out and pass for 350 yards in the game. Will Derek Carr match him? That's the key. Can they get Murray running the ball consistently in Oakland? You know you got Ingram in New Orleans. But the defense is going to be the key. Will all those guys that Raiders stacked on defense here in the offseason and the preseason perform at the level that they expected? They're going to get a true test playing against Drew Brees, Charlton.
Well, Hugh Jackson was fired because he won 8 games for the Raiders, and so we're going to see if Jack Del Rio can better that record. You have Kansas City, one of your favorites last year. They're at home versus San Diego. They're a 7-point favorite with Alex Smith.
Well, They got to worry about Joey Bosa more than anything else.
He's hurt. He's walking around with a boot.
The NFL is tough, isn't it?
Yeah.
You come out of college and you want more money, but you can't make it.
Now, the problem with Joey Bosa, he didn't understand how heavy $17 million was, so he strained his legs trying to carry it to his car, Big C. That's the problem there. But Baltimore.
I think a true key to this game, Charlton, going to be the two running backs, Gordon and San Diego, who didn't have the promising rookie year that they expected from him.
Yeah.
But Jamal Charles coming back from that devastating knee injury last year, and that was his second ACL tear in his NFL career, Charlton. But, with the offense that they run under Andy Reid in Kansas City, and Alex Smith has really developed going to Kansas City. He's gotten even better there than what he was in San Francisco prior to being hurt.
Yeah.
You don't always have to lean on the running game. Alex Smith can get it done as a durable veteran. So I like Kansas City in this game. Phillip Rivers, the weapons are just not there that used to be there with Antonio Gates. He's lost a stride or two.
Yeah.
Over the years, the receiving core hasn't been consistent. The offensive line has been challenged. Joey Bosa's hurt.
Yeah. Again. Yeah. First he was hurt because they didn't give him enough money. Now he's hurt because the money back was too heavy. Okay, Kansas City. Baltimore favored by 3 over Buffalo. Your thoughts on that game?
I like the Bills. Rex Ryan, second year at Buffalo. I think big things can happen in that scenario, Charlton. You got Tyrod Taylor signed a contract extension.
Yeah.
You got the kid, LaShawn McCoy.
Oh, he's amazing.
Who was injured a little bit, but I think this year he'll have a breakout year, 1,300 yards in Buffalo.
Yeah.
And, this team won 10 games last year, Charlton. They have a tremendous defense. They're going to be without Darius the first couple of weeks of the season at defensive tackle.
Yeah.
But I think they have just a little bit too much there at Buffalo to worry about losing this one.
Now, your favorite quarterback, I think, is Osweiler out of Houston. Signed for $72 million with Houston, even though he wasn't good enough to beat Peyton Manning that people were saying couldn't play another down. Big C, your thoughts on Osweiler in Houston? They're a 6.5-point favorite over the Chicago Bears, Big C.
Well, I got to give him some Osweiler in Houston because who's the Bears quarterback that they should cut, based on his last name?
Yeah, that Cutler. Cutler.
He should have been cut a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
As long as he's in Chicago cannot expect to have a winning season.
Yeah.
They can pay him $118 million, but they're not going to win with him. I think this is his last year in Chicago. But this is the perfect scenario for Brock Osweiler to play the Chicago Bears and get off the snide and win in his opening game as a Houston Texans quarterback.
Yeah, that's true. I think Brock Osweiler, if he can have the same kind of performance that he had when he pushed that woman down in Texas and no one criticized him more than 2 seconds, I think that was more egregious than Colin Kaepernick taking a stand.
We want to talk about NFL players and having civic duty and responsibility.
Right.
About Bruce Miller, the fullback for the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah.
Allegedly pushed a
70-year-old man. Yep.
And he was cut the next day by the 49ers.
Yeah.
So, it all depends on who the player is, how the NFL and teams discipline them.
Yeah.
If you're a quarterback, high-priced quarterback, you're going to abuse, you're going to assault, you can have allegations of sexual assault against a woman. They're not going to say anything to you.
So
if you're a fullback, you're an expendable player, you get cut. You're a running back, you get cut.
So where's the national media when they talk about bias and how Kaepernick should have stood for the flag and how whoever should have done what? And they talk about the 49er player that pushed an old man and they cut him the next day. But Osweiler was on videotape and he pushed a woman twice. I know he's Caucasian quarterback. They're going to protect the white image. But no pushback on that, even with this Big C?
Well, Charlton, like we said, it's about the amount of money that you make and the color of your skin.
Yeah.
We've seen that too many times, not just in sports, but in life.
Yeah.
And that's the divide in America, Charlton.
Yeah.
Is when that occurs. And people, the mainstream media don't want to talk about it.
No, they won't talk about it.
Who is the mainstream media?
They look like Brock Osweiler. That's definitely true, Big C. That's definitely true.
Looks like me, so I
Okay. Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers, they're a 5.5-point favorite over the Jacksonville Jaguars. Your thoughts on that? That game's in Jacksonville.
Well, that should be no challenge, Charlton. When you look at it, Blake Bortles really hasn't gotten up to the standard, or the Jacksonville Jaguars that people have expected over the past couple of years. A lot of high first-round draft picks, Charlton. Very little productivity over the last 5 years out of these players.
Yeah.
But Green Bay, they've had some trouble in the receiving core. Eddie Lacy, though, at running back, has lost a lot of weight.
Yeah.
I think Clay Matthews and Julius Peppers have something to prove this year.
You think?
Based on this allegations from the league and Alizier.
Yeah.
They've been cleared by the league now, but they want to show people that they can truly come out and play as tremendous athletes on the defensive side.
Yeah.
I look at Green Bay winning by a couple touchdowns in this one.
Now, one of my favorite teams in the NFC West under the great Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson, you have the Seattle Seahawks. They're a 10.5-point favorite over Miami. I think they're the only double-digit favorite in Week 1. That game's going to be in Seattle at Questfield, and that's a madhouse, Big C.
Well, now, who's this quarterback in Miami? Ryan Tannehill?
Yeah, Tannehill.
Yeah, and what has Tannehill done since he's been in the NFL?
Yeah, I don't think he's made the playoffs, Big C.
Okay, he hasn't made the playoffs, so there's no reason to worry about Miami. Miami's had a lot of injuries on the defensive line.
Yeah.
They've had Ware and Sue both hurt on their defensive line, so they're going to have a makeshift defensive line.
Yes.
You know, Seattle's trying to get their running game back on track. You know, Russell Wilson has performed lights out at the end of last season as well as here in the preseason, Charlton. He's in rhythm form. And if Jimmy Graham can do half of what they've expected since they traded for him at tight end,
yes,
and the young receiving core that Seattle has, and we know about the Legion of Boom on the defensive side of the ball, Charlton.
Yeah.
These guys play defense. Wagner at linebacker, Bennett at defensive tackle, Sherman in the secondary as well with
Chancellor. They had Chancellor. They got, I know you meant number 29. I forgot his name, but I know you're talking about. He's
out of University of Texas.
Out of Texas, yeah. They have a good team.
I mean, and these guys play football.
Yeah.
Carroll's a marvelous mind. He's a football genius.
Yeah.
When you look at the success he had at USC, and, you know, he probably cried a tear for him. After they fired him.
No, he's not crying. He took $7 million when Reggie Bush got on probation. Pete Carroll flew to Seattle. I think they had direct flights out of LAX to up to SeaTac Airport, Big C.
What NFL coach, Charlton, is more successful than from USC?
Yeah.
He has no peers in the NFL, Charlton. So, you know, Seattle being a double-digit favorite, they didn't give Miami enough points playing against Seattle. And the 12th man, that accounts for 7 points by itself.
Oh, their thunder is very much so. I like the Seattle in that game. Dallas Cowboys 1-point favorite over the Giants. That game's in Dallas, Big C. And you have the owner, Jerry Jones, saying that even if Romo's injured, he's still going to be his number 1 quarterback. Big C, your thoughts on Dallas at home versus the Giants?
Well, you know, you got to ask Eli Manning, what have you done for me lately? 5 years, Eli.
Yeah.
And he's no longer can use Tom Coughlin as an excuse, Charlton.
Yeah.
Well, the coach is making bad calls because Coughlin is gone, so all the weight now is on Eli's shoulders.
Yeah.
What will he get done?
Well,
so, you know, the Giants have not had the receiving core that they want. Dak Prescott had a tremendous preseason.
Yeah.
But Charlton, he was not drafted to be the starting quarterback in Dallas.
Yeah.
You hope the best for the young man, but if he can continue to play.
Yeah.
But he has to trust his running game, Charlton.
Yeah.
He has 2 tremendous running backs in Alfred Morrison and Ezekiel Elliott. These 2 players need to touch the ball 40 to 45 times during the game.
I agree.
If they can get the ball in those 2 players' hands that many times, Dallas will win this game, Charlton.
And they can also win the NFC East. I think they're looking very strong this year. Indianapolis and Detroit, that game's at home in Indianapolis. They are a 4-point favorite over Detroit. Andrew Luck, is this his breakout year, or is it just more of the excuses, seeing that it's someone else's fault, maybe the offensive line, Big C? Your thoughts on that game?
Well, Charlton, you got 2 former number 1 overall draft picks in Matthew Stafford and Andrew Luck.
Yeah.
They both found reasons not to get to the next level in the NFL. Andrew Luck, you know, last year they said, well, his offensive line got him beat up and he went out with injury.
Right.
Okay, now I kind of think that same thing happened to Robert Griffin in Washington.
Yeah, one got fired and one got promoted. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, one gets a $144 million contract, one gets cut and has to work for $14 million over 2 years.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's this complexion game once again.
Oh, yeah.
Andrew Luck, when he's not successful, last year he threw more interceptions than touchdowns. So I think the quarterback that you compare him with last year was Eli Manning, and maybe even Peyton Manning, as far as the lack of success that both of them had on the field, and also Andrew Luck. But, you know, I'm still not sold on Luck. He's a tremendous quarterback.
Yeah.
But, you know, a lot of the stuff he does is luck.
Yeah, they're trying to hype him more than I think he deserves. But I wish him the best. I wish him luck, but I don't think he's going to have a great season this year, Big C. A game that could be a preview of the NFL Super Bowl championship down in Houston. You have Arizona at home versus New England, even though New England's not going to have Tom Brady. Arizona's a 6-point favorite in that game. Your thoughts on that game?
Well, you know, this is a chance for Jimmy Garoppolo to prove that Bill Belichick is a true genius.
Yeah.
You know, if he can get the things done that Belichick has groomed him for during the preseason here at Charlton, all they got to do is stay close.
Yeah.
New England finds ways to get points through special teams, through defense. They find that. Now, Arizona's going to be very interesting. This is the team that, you know, was very close to getting to the Super Bowl last year. Both them and New England were at the same level. Carson Palmer, the clock is ticking on him at quarterback.
Yeah.
Great set of receivers out there, but the clock is ticking. Their defense is where it was let them down in the playoffs, Charlton. You know, teams scored on them at will.
Yeah.
So that's the key. Can they shore up the defense? They brought in some young players, especially in the Mickey out of University of Mississippi that we talked about.
Yeah.
Can he perform on the professional level like he did on the college level? But you know, this will be a very interesting game in the end, and I still call it a toss-up. I don't even look at the points in this. I think the last team with the ball in this game, Charlton, will win.
Especially when you have Bill Belichick. Last game, Big C, we have Monday night for the first time in 22 years. You have the Los Angeles Rams. They're playing the 49ers up in San Francisco, Santa Clara. And the Rams are actually coming in as a 2.5-point favorite. I think that Coach Kelly's making a mistake not starting Kaepernick, who's the most athletic quarterback. We saw how well he played against San Diego. I also think he's going to start Garrett because he's going to try to let the media know, listen, I did it your way. It didn't work. We're going to bring in Kaepernick maybe in week 3 or 4. That's just my opinion, Big C. Your thoughts on the L.A. Rams coming into San Francisco, Santa Clara, Big C?
Well, when you talk about Gabbert, this is Gabbert's opportunity to play himself out of another starting job in the NFL. Since he's entered the NFL, Charlton, really in the modern day in the NFL, he is the only quarterback in NFL history to have started at least 30 games.
Yeah.
And only win 7
of
starters.
Yeah.
And that's what you think about it. He was the second quarterback drafted, number 5 overall by Jacksonville, the same year that Cam Newton was drafted.
Yeah.
Colin Kaepernick was drafted in the second round that year, as well as Andy Dalton, which have been 2 of the 3 most successful quarterbacks in that draft.
Yeah, so what is Skip Kelly drinking? I mean, he's doing. I think he's doing this for the media. I think you look at Trent Baalke and the 49er brass. They don't like Kaepernick for whatever reason it is. Maybe it's the tattoos. Maybe it's a skin complexion, Big C. But what are they doing?
Quarterback, Joe.
Yeah, that's true.
Jim Harbaugh
but he took him to a Super Bowl, Big C.
Jim Harbaugh made him the starter.
Yeah.
You saw what they did to Jim Harbaugh. So this is the remnants of Jim Harbaugh still lingering in San Francisco. He has a contract. They didn't cut him because they didn't want to eat all that dead money on the contract.
Yeah.
So the media didn't understand that. You don't cut a guy when you got a lot of dead money and you can't do anything with it. You can't sign players because you're going to have $40 million stuck under the salary cap. So that's the reason why Colin Kaepernick was there. But also Chip Kelly has given Blaine Gabbert an opportunity to prove that he can't play in the NFL.
Yeah, well, he's already proven that he has about 8 wins in his career.
7 wins.
7. Okay, 7. Right. You know, and that's the guy we want. Right. Well, Big C.
Quarterback has been to the Super Bowl, the NFC Championship.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter.
You look at the Rams, Charlton. They got Jeff Goff, number 1 overall draft pick. But this is going to be Case Keenum starting in the game for the Rams.
Yeah.
I give the advantage to Case Keenum. If you just compare these 2 quarterbacks' college careers, Case Keenum threw 156 touchdowns in college, Charlton.
Right.
Over 19,000 yards, and we talked about his former University of Houston.
Yes.
Blaine Gabbert, playing 2 years down at the University of Missouri, passed with just over 3,200 yards in 2 years.
Yes.
So when I'm looking at the ability to push the ball down the field, I like the Rams, and they also got Todd Gurley.
Oh, yeah.
I think Case Keenum will lean heavy on Todd Gurley and let Todd do what he does, and the Rams will come out with at least a 10-point win in this game.
Well, I still think about Kaepernick, who beat Tom Brady on the road. He also beat Aaron Rodgers on the road. He beat Cam Newton. He beat Wilson from Seattle. He beat Stafford at Detroit. He also beat Ryan from Atlanta. And for some reason, they don't remember that, Big C. Those are $100 million quarterbacks.
Those are not quality wins. So that's the thing.
He has more wins over $100 million quarterbacks than anyone in the history of the organization. But that's not the guy they want. But speaking of who we want, every Monday through Friday at 5:00 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, worldwide on the iHeartRadio network. We're doing a 6:00 p.m. show today. You can listen to Charlton and Big C Sports worldwide. We want to thank all of our audience in Latin America, as well as Berlin, Germany, and the great country of Canada, and of course the great United States. And as we always say, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.